Welcome everyone to another UniVirtual experience event. UniVirtual is a partnership between Virtual World Society and educators in VR, and they are bringing together experts and innovators in immersive education, disrupting education around the world. Before we begin this incredibly interesting cultural event, I'm so excited about what Lida's about to share with us. We'd like to just take a moment to acknowledge and to thank sponsors. These kinds of events don't happen without the contribution and sponsorship of a lot of people. So we want to say a special thank you to our Infinity sponsors, HP Virtual Reality and HP Higher Education. Did you know they just released a new edition of the HP Reverb G2 that is perfectly designed for higher ed with pulse and eye monitoring and testing, and other innovations excellent for precision controls, research, and development? Check out the articles on the Educators in VR website. So that's educatorsinvr.com. Or you can head to hp.com virtual reality and HP Higher Education to their websites to learn more. We'd also like to acknowledge and give thanks to our Galaxy sponsors, Engage VR and Avantis. They are also changing education in VR and XR. Blowing our minds, these companies are, right? So now I think we'll get started. I'm gonna pass it over to Lida, and Lida, we're so excited for your presentation today.
It's the Lida and Lorelle show.
Oh, both of you. My
Okay.
apologies. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, that's okay. No, that's fine. All right. Thank you, Donna. Thank you. And to all of our amazing sponsors and all of you for being here in this beautiful theater that was created by Lida as part of her Athens Agora World. And she's going to be talking more about that in a little bit and how we're doing this. So we are part of, and we have other team members that just aren't here today, part of the Educators in VR Cultural Heritage Preservation Team. That it's a team project, and in Educators in VR, instead of having SIGs, the special interest groups, we have team projects because they're collaborative. We chose that name particularly as a team. We come together to bring you the latest, greatest, and bestest and informative information, education, and training, etc., on specific interest topics. And this one is near and dear to Lida and my heart. Absolutely, for really preserving the cultural heritage and in using XR technology. All right, so next up, Lida's in charge of the great slide changing. Now, I don't know if y'all remember in 2015, ISIS came into the Mosul Museum and destroyed it. They took hammers and sledgehammers and jackhammers and explosive everything they could to completely destroy the museum. These two young men who were in college, Chance and Matthew, here, were absolutely out. They were from that area, and they were studying in the UK, and they were absolutely devastated to see that this precious museum that had Persian artifacts going back thousands of years be destroyed. So they decided to reproduce the museum in VR. They did it as a crowdsourced project where they put out word to everyone to who knew about the museum, were fans with the museum, who knew anything about what was going, with the museum, any photographs and anything else. And they collected up all these crowdsourced images. They scanned them in, used amazing technology to create 3D models and versions and recreate this museum in 3D after it was destroyed based on thousands of donated photographs. That is amazing. And it is still going around. It was called Project Mosul. It's now called Reiki. And please check it out. It's incredible. But we need to move before the damage happens. When it comes to preserving, we need to preserve now because we don't know when the next earthquake is. We don't know when the next devastating instant is going to be. And we need to do that. But we're also going to bring things back too from the dead. All right, next. One of the bringing back from the deads is a passion of mine. And if anyone knows anyone associated with this project in any way, shape, or form, please come see Lida, myself, or any of our team that is here. We would love to have them come speak for us. The Project 2022 project started several years ago with Trinity College in cooperation with the United Kingdom and the British Museum and the United Kingdom Archives and the Irish Archives, et cetera, with Trinity College to rebuild the 4 courts that was archives that was burned to the ground in 1922 as part of the Civil War. This 100 years of historical documents were just damaged and destroyed. They have been working for years to recollect as many of those documents as possible. And not only is this an amazing project because they want to restore that, but let me just add a little bit of the complexity to this. This is a cross-campus, cross-culture, cross-nation, cross-international border project. They are collecting documents because there's always copies of records and things, birth records and all kinds of things. People make copies, people from China, Japan, from Thailand, from Turkey, from all over the Middle East. People are donating records that were damaged in this amazing archive so that they can be scanned and recreated. They're using it's cross campus because they're using their web department, their archaeology department, their digital design, all these different departments, library sciences, project management sciences are all coming together to work on this project so that in the end, when it is done, which is hopefully going to be next year, you will be able to walk into that building and there will be an information kiosk there. And either it'll be occupied by AI or a person. And you'll be able to say, I'm looking for the baptismal records, or the tax records from 1802 in this county, in this place in Ireland. And they'll say, all right, head up the stairs, turn right at go to the third floor, turn right and go down to aisle BX, whatever it is. You'll be able to actually walk to where that record would have been stored. Be able to touch that record, so to speak, in VR or in 2D. And if the record exists, you will see that record in front of you. You'll have the ability to download it and access it in some way. If it doesn't exist, they're going to give you the links to find more information about what that would have been. We're talking about thousands and thousands of records. Talk about immersive experience and data management and everything else. This is a huge, huge project. I don't know how they do it, but I want to get them in here to have us talk to us. But that's the scale that we're talking about, where it's multiple layers of tasks. It's a beautiful thing that we're talking about with this group. All right, next. Do check out the videos on those. All right, now our mission is to explore and share methodologies and the examples of the preservation of historical and cultural sites, whether they be man-made or natural, for education and legacy. Now, that's a really simple mission. That's really simple. That isn't, okay? But this is a really complex thing that we're doing, and we want you to be a part of this, without a doubt. All right, next. This is some of the things that we've been doing so far. We had Mark Jeffcock was here, who teaches photogrammetry and a bunch of other Unity-based programs and things for world building. And he talked to us about the scanning techniques that went into that. He's been working with some museums and universities to scan. He has this beautiful cup that was from Egypt. It was just amazing, amazing detail that you could walk in that cup and see it inside and out. We also had the head of Sketchfab's museum department came in, brought this lion in, which is an amazing high resolution, low poly version of this beautiful lion, and talked about how do you scan, how do you take the photographs, line them up, and create high resolution looking low poly versions to bring into ALTSPACE and other low poly platforms of these beautiful relics and historical things. We've had great programs with that, and we're going to be having a ton more coming up this year, and we'd love to have you involved. Okay. Now, Lida is one of my partners in crime here. You want to talk about what you've been doing this last year or so?
Yes, so as part of a larger project, I have been trying to recreate archaeological sites, Greek archaeological sites inside ALTSPACE. And you can see in the images here on the slide the in progress work for two of these. The first, the Blender image, you see the 3D model is from the project of the Acropolis, which is still ongoing. And the other one is a stage of the building the Agora, which was my first project, which is now complete. And in fact, the building you see in the back, the last building in the back you see there in my Unity project is in fact the building we're standing right now inside the Agora. Of course, it's unfinished in this picture, but yes, this building you're standing right now is the building you see on the map over there. So yes, it's an ongoing project. The Acropolis, we will have a tour of the Acropolis, I believe, in the 14th of May, and you can join. Just click on the button there so you have a reminder
yeah.
of joining,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll be there and take you around the map.
Yeah, so she's going to be doing a special tour as part of the UniVirtual experience of her Athens Agora marketplace, which is her scale, 1-to-1 scale reproduction of this historical market that doesn't exist anymore. She's brought it back to life so you can experience it much like what it would have been. And also, she's going to be taking us through her new Acropolis. The Acropolis is also 1-to-1 scale, and oh my goodness, the information you're going to learn. So please look for those on our UniVirtual experience schedule and on the AltSpace calendar. Subscribe to Educators in VR. You'll get notified as well to our channel. And I'm just so excited. I can't stand it. And you want to tell them, how did you start doing this? How did you start doing this, Lida?
Yes, it was a sort of way of I'm trying to find a way of making these places, bring them back to life, and making them as interactive and as story driven as I can. And it comes from, let's say, as you know, these are not the recreation in 3D of archaeological sites is not unique. This is not the first time this has ever been attempted, but in my experience, usually these recreations tend to be very stiff and very lifeless. And let's say my drive here is to find a way to make them more lively and more interactive. And this is a first step to this direction. Let's see how it goes.
And we're going to be talking more about that in a second. So I love that. Thank you. All right, next up. Now, here's how you can get involved. First of all, you can go to educatorsinvr.com and you can join. We have Facebook and Discord, but most of our conversations happen on Discord. And we have a group for our cultural heritage preservation where we have a ton of links and information and resources. So please join us there. And share links. If you found amazing worlds here in AltSpace or on Mozilla Hubs or Engage or anywhere else that really help us understand and appreciate our cultural heritage and preservation, share links, articles, news stories. I am extraordinarily fascinated with what is happening with our ability to scan documents in the Vatican and documents that were burned in the fires and the destruction, like the Four Courts fire, or in Louisiana, the Allen or at the what's it called, where there was a big fire at the big National Archives there in Louisiana, and they're able to now scan with special X-ray, lasery, digitally, whatever it is, scanning documents that are rolled up or in sealed containers that cannot be unrolled because they're so incredibly fragile. They will completely shatter and destroy, or if they touch oxygen. If the oxygen is exposed to the ink recently, so open them up, you actually destroy it. They were able to scan these and recreate 3D models of
I
as well.
think
And
yes.
I just absolutely. Oops,
You're
am I
breaking
back?
up,
Am I
Lorelle.
back?
Lorelle,
Am I back and steady, or do I need to re-enter?
right now, yes, you sound okay right now.
Okay. Now I'm all right. All right, I'm back. So anyway, I'm very passionate about all of the technologies going into scanning documents and recreating them in 3D and whatnot. And we hope to bring those into VR, make them in AR, etc. So that's really important. Please, if you find something that you're passionate about with the preservation, please share that information on our channel. If you are a teacher with dealing with any of this, doing Unity and preservation and all the digital scanning and librarian or whatever, come talk to us. We would love to have you present on this as well. And most of all, we want you to join in and help, because if we're not preserving it, we're losing it, right? That's just a motto of life. All right, next up.
Let's see. Oops. Come on. There you go.
There. All right. Now, I'm going to open this up because I want to have us all talk about this as well. But Lida, I want to talk to you first. I created one of the early museums here in ALTSPACE dedicated to family history and genealogy, and that was it's an ongoing labor of love. But I would like to know, as your opinion on what is it, answering the question of what is worth saving. And I think this is a really important question, but it's not a judgment question. So I'm going to share a quick story with you, and then Lida, I'd love to have your opinion on this, and anyone else who wants to talk about this. I lived in Israel for a long time, and I loved interrogating the archaeologists and the historians. I was in heaven. That was wonderful. And one of the fascinating aspects was the question of how far do you dig? Now, when in 1967, when Jordan pulled out of the old town of Jerusalem in that war, they blew up a whole bunch of things. And so the archaeologists then had to move in, move away the rubble, and then start digging down and determining at what time period do you actually stop. So if you find things at, let's say from the 1800s, do you stop there and plant a museum? Or what if you know that underneath is something from the 1600s? Do you then destroy or do comes to our job for scanning and we can't scan everything in the world. We would like to, but sometimes we can't recreate everything, but we would like to. It's going to take an army. But I'm really curious about that question about what's worth preserving and what's worth recreating. Lida, why did you do Athens Agora? Why did you bring it back from the dust?
Well, in the case of Athens Agora, it's quite easy. It's very difficult to understand what's going on if you enter the archaeological site, because almost everything there has been razed to the ground. It's delved deeply into the history and the architecture of the period to understand, visualize this place. So
what is it?
Bringing it back in a 3D more, yeah.
It's just weeds and a few statues and a few. What is there
no
now?
statues. I mean, the few statues that managed to survive are in the museum of the Agora, but the buildings are, with the exception of a few columns, it's just you go around and what you see is foundations mostly.
Okay.
So it's very difficult to visualize exactly what you're looking at unless you have something. I mean, some cases they do have a small, plaque in front of it which shows, it looks like this. But even then, I understand the whole space, because not isolated individual buildings, or entire spaces that had life and function, and people running around, and streets. And that's not easy to understand if you're there. You're there. It's gone. I don't know how else to say it. It's gone.
No, that's what. And so, what made you choose that one to restore?
It was a choice between Acropolis and the Agora. Actually, the reason for this decision was practical. The Agora is a smaller archaeological site, the Acropolis, so it was my first attempt. I tried to make my attempt a bit more easy because I was learning at the same time, which is an issue. And the second reason is surprising maybe to most people. People are more familiar with the Acropolis because of its splendor and the importance and the artistic importance of it. But you cannot have the Acropolis without the Agora. The Acropolis exists because the Agora exists. What happened in the Agora is what created the Acropolis in the end.
What does it mean?
If you think it, because all the processes, the political processes and the historical the power, the had came from the Agora, from what the Agora produced. Yes,
the market came from the marketplace.
And the marketplace, and also the political center. It was these two things. People came to the Agora not only to do business, but also to exchange ideas, to perform the civic duties, to argue.
Sounds like ALTSPACE.
Yes. So yeah, in a way, you could not have the Acropolis without the Agora, if you think about it.
Okay, that makes sense. And so, and when you see now, right there is a beautiful connection. The Acropolis came out of the income, the economy, the stretching out and reaching out and expansion of that whole marketplace needed to have something that was grand. As the economy got grander, they wanted grander buildings. They started also building, expanding. That makes sense.
Yes, and also, as I said, it was the political, gradually becoming, throwing away the system of the royal system, having kings, and replacing it gradually with the oligarchy, and then replacing it with democracy. It all came from that place, if you think about it.
Now, this is really important when we think about creating something in XR and preserving it, bringing it in, like bringing in this building, this beautiful theater. We go, oh, cool. It's a cool theater. But do we really understand the story behind? We understand what really built this building? Why is the lion, that important structure? Because that took a long time to carve out of stone. What's the story? What's the significance? And I think that's an important part of the preservation we do, is the story behind, so that we understand why this place. Doesn't that make sense to everybody? All right, we have a question here. Jose. Hello, Jose.
Hello.
Hi. Oops, did we lose you, Jose? Okay, let's try this again. All right. You want to try it again?
Okay, can you hear me now?
There. Yes, we can. Yes.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. That's a very, very important and interesting project. I've been working with Lida because she helped me also to recreate an old Greek temple. That's because I'm part of the Educators in VR XR medical and health project. We wanted to make something interesting about medicine, so I created a little archaeological reconstruction of this Greek temple for the god of medicine. And Lida was helping me a lot with all these techniques that she was explaining today. So yes, please do more of that work. And if anybody else can help and do things like that, that's very important.
Wonderful.
Thank
Oh,
you.
excellent, excellent. Thank you. Thank you. I love that. Now, we are also talking about, as we're exploring this today, um, the the challenges are associated with the techniques and the access. Now, Lida, you had to learn Unity. You had the vision,
Yes.
you had the dream. You said, "All right, I'm up. I want to do this." But there is more to it, and it wasn't just learning. You learned Unity to build Agora, but you also had to find the documents, the maps, the do the research
Yes.
behind all that. So
Oh,
talk about that,
oh boy.
please.
All right. So yeah, in the case of the Agora, it was a bit more easy because the nice people at the American School of Classical Studies in Athens were created a full database of the everything they did for the last 80 years since the 1930s when the
Wow.
excavation started. You can go to their website and you can find anything from the scanned diaries, archaeological diaries, excavation diaries, to
Oh, wow.
the reconstruction designs, anything, everything, the photos, every stage of the work they did for 80 years is available online in one place. That's very
Mhm.
rare, by the way.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow.
So 80% of, if you go to the Agora World, 80% of what you see there comes from that website, from the information
Well,
from that website.
but that access is amazing because there is the story of the world, but there's the story of the people uncovering the world, basically, right?
Yes. Yes. They also have also
Wow.
the stories of the archaeologists and how they worked. And it's an amazing place if you're interested in archaeology and the process and how the process changed over the years and all the difficulties they had. And wow, yes, everything is there. If you are patient, you can find
Mm-hmm.
everything there. But in the
Yes.
case of the Acropolis, that wasn't the case. You
Well,
need to
you think
go
it's the more
through.
famous. That's the
Yeah,
more
it's the
famous
most
place.
famous, but it's for various reasons I'm not going to go into now.
Mm.
It's not the case.
Mm.
Everything is spread out into various publications, books, and you need to go through Jastor and all the sites that contain research publications, go through the work, or buy extremely expensive books, or find them through
Yee.
magic means in the
Mm-hmm.
internet in a PDF form.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's a lot of work.
And it's really important to do that research to create the world. I mean, anybody could grab a model and slap it down. I mean, there's
No, you
probably
cannot do that if you want to do a social especially if you want to do something in social
exactly.
VR, because of the extreme limitation it imposes to world builders.
That's true, which that's part of the challenge.
Yep.
You know, the same challenge, same thing I just talked about, where how does an archaeologist decide when to stop digging and preserve there and not when there might be something more valuable below? The constraints we have for world building in, let's say, alt space are limited by access as well, because you can build here in alt space anything you want. You really can. You can build as high poly, out of control, whatever you want, but you may be the only one to see it, because accessibility also means people with different headsets and 2D and Mac and stuff have that ability to actually enter into the world, to actually see it. It's nice to build it, but you need to get people in the door, right? That's just how it works. And so you had to build to allow people to have access to the world, and that's part of the challenge, is to work within the limits. How Talk about that, please.
Oh yes, well, yes. Beginning with the beginning of this project, had the specific problem was this. It wasn't a problem. I mean, it was a problem I created for myself, because that's the way I want to build this place. Because I wanted all the entire world to be explorable and to be as it was, to have the feel, and more importantly, to allow people to explore it as close as it was in those days, meaning no building and no structure would be a facade. Every building and every structure inside the map would be explorable in the same way you would explore the building in real life. It will have, stairs that the doors, it will have rooms, and will be exactly the rooms you would find in the real place, or as close as we understand them to be, obviously. And to create that
It's huge.
yes, it's huge. So I had to be very careful about the size of the buildings. I had to make them as simple as possible when it comes to their construction, and to allow people to experience them as close as they were in real life. You can't have the elaborate textures, you can't have little details need to be missing, unfortunately. But I believe, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but the part that has to, if you go to the Agora, you will find this building about in the middle of the map. And this building is not a facade. If you enter it, you will find the same thing you find here. You will be in the same space you are right now if you enter the Agora and enter this building.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes for every building in that map. So I think that the fact that I don't have the specific textures and specific colors that you would expect in reconstruction, but instead I have the space, I believe that's more important for someone who wants to experience these places as they were in the past.
Wow.
You understand what I mean, I hope.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Without a doubt. And what kind of sacrifices and compromises did you need to make? And if any
No
of you are world
textures,
builders out there,
block colors,
so no textures,
for example.
Okay.
For example,
and
one major thing is, I don't even have the texture you see now in this world. I could afford putting this texture here because this is just the building, the inside of the building. There's nothing else in the world here. So I could afford to put this low, and in fact, it's not that high poly, as you can see. It's very high poly, high, it's very simple. But no textures. Every prop and every environmental addition, like the trees or the brushes or the rocks, are all low poly. Again, no textures on them. Everything is a solid block of color. I try to create variations so people don't get it's not extremely boring. But yes, that's one thing I need to throw away. There will be no textures here. Everything's going to be solid color. Make it as simple as possible.
And that takes talent to make it interesting, and solid colors takes some serious talent in there. I love that. All right, we have Cristal Liosa. You're on.
Hi.
You have hi.
Hi, I'm Chris.
Cristal,
I
hi, Chris.
have two questions.
Mm-hmm.
I have two questions. When it comes to this project, right, I find this is a very interesting project, but what is the biggest obstacle that you have faced in terms of conserving a cultural heritage monument, in terms of conserving it in a VR platform? Because when it comes to immersion level, it might be a bit different if we are choosing another platform aside from VR Outspace. And then in terms of perhaps motion latency when you are using the VR HMD, VR headset.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your biggest obstacle in making sure that the immersion level in terms of understanding and appreciating cultural heritage a lot more enhanced in this virtual Outspace
In the
VR
specific,
context?
in the case
Yeah.
of Altspace, is the lack of creating interactive objects and creating, to be able to create interactive storytelling. That's the problem with Altspace. That's the main
That's one of
issue.
them.
If they manage to overcome this is ideal for me.
Yes, I think
Altspace is
that's part
ideal
of it.
for this.
Absolutely. And Chris, I'd like to know, what do you think is the biggest problem besides the interactable? What do you think it is? Oops. You should still be on. Oh,
Maybe
let me hit you
she's
again.
muted.
Let's do it again. Let's try it again.
Okay, I'm back on. I think probably in terms of optimizing the world, because when we are in ALTSPACEVR, right, the assets. I mean, the world is in low poly. But then when we look at that particular sculpture, and we look at all these other installation sculptures, they are a bit more high res, even though they are in low poly. So I think that would be probably one of the biggest obstacle. But I'm just wondering, what would be the biggest obstacle to you?
I just explained it's
Yeah,
in
the
the
interactivity.
interactivity. I don't care much
Interactivity.
about being, having great details and stuff like that. I do not care, honestly. Interactivity and creating, adding storytelling and allow people to pick up our objects, open doors, do what you would expect to interact with things in the way you would expect in the real world is far more important to me than having a full, detailed reproduction of a sculpture or of a, of some object. I really don't care about that.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
And it's about the experience. In places like AltSpace, we cannot do complete pixel by pixel reproduction. Now, someday, yes, we want that holographic experience, that holodeck experience. But it's making I think the hardest point is the interactability, interaction issues, not being able to pick things up, wandering around and hold on to them, put things together and touch and interact with things more than just, the little bit of interaction we have right here in AltSpace. But and quizzes and tests and things like that can be incorporated in that help understanding and help comprehension. But it's the compromises we have to make. I think that is the biggest challenge. Like she was talking about is downgrading the colors and downgrading the tones and removing textures and things like that to make sure that we have access. So it's a complicated, like a math problem. We can do this, but then nobody can get in the door. So then we have to do less so we can get people in the door. Well, then, we can't play with things to make it as realistic as we want because we need people to get in the door because we can't do X and Y. And I think that's a jumble of crazy that I'm hoping is with the devices, our headsets becoming more powerful and, more performant, that we'll be able to move into that. And so we need to be ready for it. I think that's the key. So, but great question. Thank you. All right, Jean, you have a comment or question?
I have a question. In the future, if you could recreate any piece of history with no restrictions, with no challenges, what would it be?
Oh.
You mean a specific
If you could do
incident?
anything you wanted, yeah.
And a specific incident. Well.
Specific
God, I have so many.
piece of history you could bring back to life.
Specific piece of history. I really cannot think. I mean, there are many. One thing, you might sound very boring, but probably one of the most important moments in history that people don't know probably about or know very little about is the Battle of Actium, for example. You say, battle sounds boring. It was very important. Very people know about it.
Why?
I know very few people know about it, but yeah. I mean, that's one thing.
But why was that important?
It was the moment that essentially Rome became an empire.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one moment, and there are others. It's a bit difficult, but because people expect moments. There were very few times in human history where there were moments. It was processes a lot of the time. Things gradually became something. They did not just pop up in a moment in history. There are moments, of course, that if it went the other way, the history would be very different, and it was a moment that made everything different. But most cases, things gradually move to a direction, step by step.
Yeah. If you haven't been to the DDay world that's here in AltSpace, please check that out. It is a great example of preserving a moment with as low poly an experience as possible. It's a very audible, hair standing on end kind of an experience. It's very, 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 very simple about the invasion at D-Day for World War II. But that's a glorious question. And I was just kind of, I had to think back, what would I really, because I had to rewire it. What would I really want to experience? And I think if there was anything that I would want to, as an adventure and a moment, so to speak, it would be the travels of Marco Polo, because that was a big game. His exploration opened up a a vision of people in one place, not even paying attention that there was a bigger world. And so Marco Polo, and I would love to see a marketplace on the Silk Road in its heyday, where everybody's coming through the isthmus and passing through. And what did that look like? As well as I want to go back in history to the earliest migrations, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many of them, but those are key, because as Lida so beautifully said, there are places where there were moments. Marco Polo is about a life of exploring and bringing back and showcasing and minds changing and opening in different ways. And the Silk Road is about all the diversity coming together in one place and really understanding what that is. And I will tell you, I'm of the ilk that wants to destroy all the mythology that's out there. I want to know who Hercules was, or Zeus. Was it a real person or was it just made up? Was it really just a story? I want to, really understand about what did Columbus really do or not do. On the coast of on the coast of Spain, in Huelva, there is this beautiful sand sculpture of Columbus. He's actually pointing towards New York, but anyway, it was planned to point towards where he landed. But it was the spirit of Columbus. And when I think about capturing these things in VR, I think about capturing their spirit and their essence, so that we can experience it enough that we get the feeling of it. And that's what I would love to see in those places. Does that help? Where would you go? What would be yours?
I would say the Crystal Palace during Queen Victoria's rule, because it was supposed to be this grand and glorious exhibition.
Here's the thing to recreate, actually.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, why not?
But I would love to see it, because it brought out the whole feeling of technology and the future, and it was supposed to be this beautiful crystal building, and unfortunately it isn't around anymore. I think it was a fire or something that destroyed it.
Yes, it was destroyed. Yes.
Yeah.
So that would be cool. We'd love to hear what other people would love. What do you think about that? If you want, just hit that raise hand button. We'd love to hear from you. What do you want to see brought back? And, all things are possible in VR. Thanks, Jean. Great question. Great question. Thank you. All right, Steph, you're up.
I mean, we're talking as much about preserving for the future what has already been almost lost to the past. But the thing is that we're in a period of time where things are in a transition, where we can only work in low poly, and the workflow itself is very labor intensive and takes a lot of time. And we know that changes, because it always does. But if an organization, say like NASA, can lose an entire warehouse of information about the moon or their earliest missions, because they didn't keep the machine that read the tape that data is on, and that warehouse still exists, and maybe someday they'll be able to get it back, but it's lost to us for now. So we have to keep in mind that rather than spend as much time as we might making it perfect now, what we have to do is make sure that we preserve the story, at least, and the exquisite detail when we can, but still have it available so that it's not lost too. So
you're absolutely right. The storage medium is critical. So that is a really important point. Yeah, beautiful. What do you so we're going to mute you, Steph, because you got your famous echo is back here for a second. So Lida, what do you think about that point? We got to preserve the medium too.
Preserve the medium in the sense, the big question, how to preserve digital information in a way that can be accessible in 1,000 years from now. That's interesting. How do you do that?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Can you possibly imagine the changes that the technology will undergo in 1,000 years? Would they be able to access whatever we have created now? Would that survive when it's in plastic and stuff that's not exactly the most easy to preserve? In the past, most of the stuff was preserved in things like clay and stone and things that usually didn't disintegrate that easily. So yeah, I don't know.
Okay, I'm back. Okay, as someone who has too many different, I still have my iOmega drives and my zip drives and other things from dark ages. You're absolutely right. We need to pay attention to that. And we also, when we're building here on AltSpace or hubs or anywhere else, we are trusting AltSpace to survive, or at least our files to survive.
Well, I don't.
And
I mean, that's why I built it in Unity. It doesn't need AltSpace to survive.
Yes, yeah, but you need to make sure you back up that computer. So really good
Of course,
point. Really
it
good
is.
point. Yes, it is. It is. All right, let's go to the. So we want to keep this conversation going. We meet fairly regularly here with educators in VR and the Cultural Heritage and Preservation team. So if you want to hit the next slide, well, these are questions that do not get addressed in one conversation. We need to have more of them, and we'd love to have you be involved to help us build those worlds, preserve those worlds, bring them here, and make them accessible, as well as reaching out. It's AR technology and XR. VR, AR, and XR are all, we need to make them accessible. We need to bring this into schools. We need to work with schools so we can do tours of these places, be they.
Oh no. Yes, she'll be back. Yep, she'll be back in a moment.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Yeah, there
we
she
need better
goes.
internet. We need better internet for preservation of all of this stuff as well. Anyway, so but it's going to take a team. We need to explore some of the standards, the practices. We need.
Oops. All right. Yeah. Yes, this happens sometimes.
My apologies for my horrible IP. Who doesn't believe that this happens on a regular basis? You all are witnesses. All right. We are going to be talking about the techniques, the standards, the practices, all the different things with this. UniVirtual Experience is a month-long conference with Virtual World Society and educators in VR. We're going to have 2 tours with Lida, amazing Lida, for her Athens Agora is coming up. Also her Acropolis. You're going to be led around by the builder to talk about that. That is coming up. We have Mark Jeffcock is going to be doing a very special class. Does that start Monday, Donna? I think it starts tomorrow.
Sorry, muted. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Starting tomorrow. Please check the ALTSPACEVR calendar, our Educators in VR Discord, etc., and our schedule. It's on educatorsinvr.com, all of our social media. He is starting a week-long series to teach photogrammetry, which is using photographs to create amazing things like this beautiful lion. So you will not want to miss this. And on the last day, he's going to do a special showcase of everybody's objects. And so you can actually see what they've done throughout the week. So you do not want to miss that. Also, Carnivore, Mark Gill from St. Cloud State University who's built some of the most amazing worlds here for theaters and special events and things here in ALTSPACE in this famous House of Carn. For Halloween, he is going to be teaching a week-long series as well on a little more intermediate to advanced Unity techniques. And oh my goodness, it's going to be absolutely amazing. So do check those out. And we'd love to have you join us for all of that. So Lida, thank you so much for being part of our amazing team.
And thank you, Lorelle, for helping with this.
Thank you. Yeah, she and I are just like passion project sisters when it comes to this thing. We are so militant about how determined we are to make this happen. I want to thank everybody in Educators in VR. And Donna, you want to take us out, please?
Absolutely. Oh, I'm probably.
Oops, let me come over.
Oh, sorry. You guys, that was such a content-rich presentation. Thank you so much. And thank you to, I just want to close out by once again acknowledging our UniVirtual experience sponsors and present, oh, you guys, the video will really love this. I'm going to thank the sponsors. Sorry about that. This has been another UniVirtual experience and it's a partnership between Virtual World Society and Educators in VR, and bringing together those experts that I mentioned and innovators in immersive education. So we just want to highlight again that HP is our Infinity sponsor, and we're so grateful for how they're supporting this month-long endeavor, this adventure that we're all going on. So thank you to HP Virtual Reality and HP Higher Education. And just want to just mention a couple of the Galaxy sponsors are, of course, Engage VR and Avantis, and please check those out. And here's a list of educational platforms that are also contributing to supporting this event and worth checking out, you guys. So the first one is Grove XR. So you'll find them at grove.us. It's an educational learning platform. Dr. Angelina Dayton, we all know her as the VR lady, right? She is the founder and director of Students in VR. And so make sure you check her out at thevrlady.com. Frame VR, the WebXR browser-based social, creative, and educational VR platform. You'll find a bunch of events hosted in this platform as well. And you'll find that platform at framevr.io. Another one you might not be familiar with and want to check out is LearnBright. It's learnbright.com. This is an educational platform and headset that makes learning in VR safe and exciting. And last but certainly not least, just another shout out to Tony Keep Studios for their generosity of spirit and management of the video and live streaming. For this amazing experience, and all the volunteers, moderators, and the film crew that's working with Tony for everything that they're doing to make this possible. So thank you again to you for attending. We can't do this if we don't have an audience. So thank you so much. And we can go ahead and end the recording now. Thank you, everyone. See you at the next UniVirtual Experience event.
Yay! And the next one is? Do you know? Do we know the next? Is it tomorrow?
It's tomorrow. This is the last one for today. Yes. So tomorrow we start out with Glue. So if you guys haven't checked out Glue, that's what's happening first thing tomorrow. Starting at 9 a.m. It's 8 a.m. Pacific time.
Excellent. Thank you, Donna. And thank you, everybody. We're going to turn off the megaphones and we're going to remove the stage blocker. We'd love to talk to you. And thank you again, Lida. And thank you to all of the team, all of our moderators and our film crew and everybody with the UniVirtual Experience and Educators in VR. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, come on down and we'd love to talk to you. Thanks.